another build, this time for cash, and this one is something I discovered accidentally while I was leveling them, but I've developed it quite a bit. So this is basically the second iteration. The first iteration I was tapped more into different skills, but I think this one, the way it's came out, is a lot better, and what you just saw there is basically an endless barrage of dowel heads that attack people and eat them, and it sounds absolutely gross. Yeah, endless bazooka or endless ordnance build, this one, really fun. So everything you need to know, pretty easy to get this one going. You don't need a lot of stuff, basically 3 items and you're good to go. The rest all comes from skills. Drop a like if you enjoy, subscribe if you're new, and let's just get right into the details here. So we'll start with the skills here. So like I said, this is the second iteration. The first one I had more points in the blue tree, luck of the draw, which gave me gun damage and stuff, and then I realised it's ordnance focused, I don't need gun damage because it doesn't actually affect it. So we changed it up a wee bit. So most of our points in the chaos walking tree now. So first up we've got unleashed. Cash gains fire rate with guns and action skills. I don't think this one actually affects ordnance, so it's kind of a waste, but there's not really anywhere else we could put them because we want the follow-up skill and you need points in here. Next up we've got your Huckleberry, so increased critical hit damage, just a flat increase, 5 points for 20%, which is really good because we're going to be using a lot of critical strike on our ordnance, so yep, this one's brilliant. Next up, the follow-up to Unleashed, we've got Hot Hand, so we're going to deal bonus fire damage, and the higher our fire rate, the more bonus fire damage that we're going to get. The ordnance weapon has actually got a really bad fire rate, but it should still get some sort of benefit out of the bonus fire damage here, which will then be converted by a skill later on. We'll explain that in just a few moments. Next skill in the red tree is in the middle, so it's Lawless, so we're going to deal increased kinetic damage, again just a flat increase, 45%. The bazooka that we're doing is kinetic, and we're going to convert a lot of our elemental damage to kinetic as well, so this one is really damn good, 45% for 5 points. Next skill, we've got Truck Full of Nitro, so bonus kinetic damage with ordnance and gear, 30% of damage dealt, and because we're dealing a lot of damage in the first place, this 30% is just really damn nice. I'm not sure what it means by on gear as well, if it maybe means like shields and rep kits maybe. Can't say I've fully tested how that one works, but that's quite interesting nonetheless. And the core skill here that gives us the infinite ammo is actually War Wagon here, and this is when we deal kinetic damage we gain a chance to refill ammo and restore our action skill duration. We're not too concerned about the action skill duration, it's the ammo restore, so 24% chance for it to be refilled, and it's 30% of the current mag. And this one, because we're dealing so many instances of kinetic damage, it just triggers really damn often, and that's what's basically giving us the infinite ammo, because the 24% chance is proccing and just giving our ammo back, which is absolutely fantastic. It's a lot better with other launchers with bigger mags and things like that, and it basically works with any kinetic gun as well. So there's a lot of other build opportunities just revolving around this skill alone. If you were to spec into pure gun damage, there's a couple that I've got rough ideas for that we might cover at a later point, but this one all about the ordnance, and that's why our ordnance benefits from this and gets the infinite ammo. This skill here, War Wagon, absolutely fantastic. And the follow-up to Lawless, the bonus kinetic damage, so this one's really good because we're going to be dealing a lot of elemental damage, so this one converts elemental damage into kinetic. So 45% of all elemental damage we deal is going to be converted to kinetic, and it's going to be increased by 75%, so it's just a damage buff basically. It's exchanging the elemental damage, so it might not necessarily be amazing. So if it's like shock against a shield, converting it to kinetic, which is less effective than shock against a shield, but at least it's getting that damage buff there as well. So this one, absolutely brilliant, 5 points there. And the rest of our points and the action skill that we're actually using are in the blue tree, which is the action skill is Sleight of Hand, so we're going to summon a magical card deck with various effects, and the cards are completely random, and we're going to have 4 to choose from. 2 of them we're interested in, the other 2 they don't really matter, we don't want them, but because it's random we don't really have a lot of say, and a lot of the damage in this build is quite random. We're relying on a lot of random crit procs and random double damage procs, so just the way cash works unfortunately with fortune stuff, so sometimes it can be absolutely insane, other times not so good, but it's still really fun. So first up in the blue tree here we've got Splash the Pot, we've got 5 bonus points in here from our class mod, and we're going to get increased ordnance damage, and it's doubled while Windfall is active. For the 10 points it's 50%, If it's 5 points, it would obviously be 25% doubled in Windfall, but at Windfall we're not going to be able to trigger it too easily. It's just by activating our action skill that's going to be triggering it, because we're not going to be reloading really, so not really too concerned about the Windfall there. Next up, we've got Sounds of Rain, a fortune skill. We're going to gain a chance to critically hit with guns, action skill and ordnance, so this one actually specifies it works, and it's 10%, so if we're at maximum fortune stacks, 10% chance for our ordnance to crit there. And the next skill, we've got Devil's Tines. This one's optional, you can put this elsewhere if you choose, but I just like it because it gives us a additional card. There's one that's really good that you can get with your additional augment, because the other one is mandatorily taken. It's absolutely essential for this build. This one lets you get the augment here called Bet on Red, so it's another fortune skill. We're going to gain damage reduction when we're in Sleight of Hand, but we're not too concerned about that. And it's going to add the Vampiric Touch card, so it deals kinetic lifesteal damage, has a high crit chance, and also deals ordnance damage. So because we've got so much ordnance, this card can actually hit really goddamn hard, despite us not speccing into action skill at all. So this one is going to give us 30% damage reduction when we're in the action skill, and the card has a base damage of 25,349, 50% lifesteal effectiveness, 75% chance to crit, so absolutely fantastic. It can hit really goddamn hard. The next skill we've got is Double Down, so again another chance based skill, fortune skill. We're going to get a chance to deal double ordnance damage. Again, the more fortune stacks, the greater the chance, so at maximum stacks, 15% chance for any instance of ordnance to be doubled. So if this procs consistently, it's going to deal an absolute insane amount of damage. And the next skill, all on the right hand side of the blue tree here, we've got Kill Button. Another fortune skill. We're going to gain increased ordnance damage again, and the more stacks, the greater the bonus, so 45% ordnance damage at maximum of 10 stacks. And the core augment, so this is the one that gives us absolute boatloads of damage. Again, because it's random, so you can pull out your action skill and not pull any of these cards if you're unlucky. So it adds the Colour Spray card, which deals random elemental damage, which then apply to our guns for a duration of 16 seconds. That does apply to ordnance as well, so you can trigger multiple instances of this if you just pull multiple Colour Spray cards. If you're in Windfall, it deals 2 instances of elemental damage, so if you trigger Windfall and pull multiple of these cards, you can essentially apply every single element on one ordnance shot, which is absolutely fantastic. So again, a lot of randomness here, but the bonus damage is 42% of each element, so if you trigger 2 elements, that's 42%, 84% bonus damage, which is then converted into kinetic damage via Nothing Beats Lead skill, so that is then buffing the damage even more. So the elemental damage really goddamn good, and that's the essential augment for this one. And the last 5 points we've got into payout, so this is just going to increase all of our fortune skills by 40%, so it's going to increase Kill Button, the ordnance damage, it's going to increase Double Down, the ordnance double damage chance, it's going to increase the Sounds of Rain critical hit chance, and it's also going to increase Splash the Pot, the ordnance damage again. So 40%, they're all 40% more than what we just said basically, which is absolutely fantastic. So that's the skills, and that's all you need. So a lot of the usability from this build is coming from the skills alone. So we'll touch on the gear in just a second, but first we'll touch on the firmware, because again, pretty easy, you don't need a huge amount here. So for the firmware, it's literally just Gadget Ahoy. So 3 points into Gadget Ahoy, you're getting ordnance cooldown duration by 15%, not too bothered about that because it's going to be permanently up if you're using this correctly. 20% ordnance damage, yes please give me that, and ordnance kills going to add 20% damage for 15 seconds, so we're going to be getting a lot of kills with this. It's going to be up permanently, it's going to be doing most of our damage, so we're essentially going to have the 20% damage buff up quite a lot, especially if you're mobbing with this one. And that's it. You don't actually need any other firmware. I've tried to get something to work, but all of them like affect guns or health or projectile speed, but we're just not really concerned about any of that because it's all coming from ordnance, this one, so you don't actually need any more than Gadget Ahoy with this one, which is absolutely fantastic. So it should be a lot easier to get. I think this is probably the first build guide I've ever done where I'm not recommending that you take 5 pieces of firmware, so literally 3 points into Gadget Ahoy and that's you. And we'll touch on the gear that you need now. Alright, so for the gear that you need for this, so actually you don't need any guns because we're relying so much on ordnance, and we've got basically infinite ammo procs from War Wagon. Any kinetic gun will basically have infinite ammo if you continually hit an enemy, but like I said, you're not going to be using these like only in a pinch if you go down or whatever. So the roulette is obviously really good. It plays really well with Cash's playstyle about randomness and all that. Bonnie and Clyde is good. You can trigger the buff and then switch to the other mode and have permanent uptime on the 150% damage because the ammo just constantly regenerates. Or any other kinetic gun, Jacob's weapons with high pellet counts, they will just restore themselves, so you'll have like an infinite ammo shotgun. But yeah, no dedicated guns for this, it's all about the gear and the ordnance. So the core component is the Heimdall here. This is one of the new launchers exclusive to the DLC, and for this one it basically shoots Dal soldier heads. When I first read it and saw it, I was like, that doesn't sound too good, but the damage is really high, so it scales really well with all our ordnance bonuses. And this one actually drops from Captain Willis. So Captain Willis can be found at the very end of the new DLC as the final boss, and he's inside the Maelstrom here. So down on the DSN Fuhrman, if that's how you say it, I don't have a clue how that's how you say it or not. But he's in the Maelstrom final boss and he drops the Heimdall. So you'll need it in kinetic. It does come in all other elements, so it might be a bit of a pain to get. It's got a 15% chance for Ultimate Vault Hunter 6. Or a 30% chance for Big Encore. The only problem with this one, because it does so much damage, it's obviously getting it in kinetic in the first place, and it's terrible against Vile enemies, which are pretty damn common in the higher difficulties, so it's not the best for that, so you'll need another way to deal with those enemies, or using some sort of other gun. But if you don't want to use this one, alternatively I would recommend a Torg speed launcher, so something like this. This is just a purple. I don't think there's a legendary equivalent of something like this. This one's got extended mag, so it's got a 32 mag and a 30% fire rate increase, so it just absolutely spews rockets. You'll see it in some of the gameplay in the background there. Not as strong as the Heimdall when all the crits and all that are proccing off, but it's still a lot of fun, and I think I actually might prefer it just from a gameplay standpoint, even though it's not as strong. But this is just world loot that can be found anywhere, so this is your alternative launcher. Good to have on you as well, just to swap out if you want to use something else. And for the rest of the gear that you'll need, so we've got a large augmenter AF1000 for our rep kit. This is because it's got the longest buff duration. If you can get this with the Enrage passive like we've got, that gives you 30% damage for a 15% increase in damage taken for a full 20 seconds, that would be the ideal roll. If not, you can get fire rate's good. We've got one here with fire rate, or one with elemental damage, which will then be converted into kinetic using the Nothing Beats Lead skill. So rolls, enrage, fire rate, or elemental damage I would say is probably your best for the AF1000, and this one can be found from Rock and Roller. Rock and Roller can be found up the top left of Carcadia Burn in the Trinket Crevasse Auger Mine here, and you can kill him for that. 15% chance on Ultimate Vault Hunter 6, or a 30% chance on Big Encore. For your class mod, so we've chosen the Cooler class mod, so this one pretty good in that when we deal ordnance damage we're going to jinx the enemies. So jinx is basically a debuff that was in the last build guide that I did for Cash, but just as a reminder, the skill here. So jinxed enemies deal negative 30% damage and they take an additional 20% damage. So basically this class mod is going to let you apply that to basically anyone that you shoot. So any enemy is going to become jinxed automatically. And the second part of the class mod, we're probably not using this for its intended purpose because it likes to direct you down the green skill tree, which we've not got any points in. But the second part is whenever we kill a jinxed enemy, we're going to gain 20% ordnance cooldown rate, but we don't care about that because our ordnance is basically infinite. The rolls on this, it will always come with ordnance cooldown rate, and this one's got 70% melee damage, which is absolutely useless. If you've got ordnance damage or general crit, this would be even better, but getting a perfect roll for something like this is quite difficult. So for this one, you can find this from Guardian Origo. So Guardian Origo actually drops the shield that you'll need for this build as well, which is the What's for Dinner. So we'll just cover his location in a second in case you don't know. This shield, the What's for Dinner, really good in that when we've got overshield, we're going to gain 25% shock damage on every piece of damage that we do, which again will be converted to kinetic with Nothing Beats Lead. This one has a chance to give us overshield when we do damage as well, so it's just a higher chance that the shock damage buff is going to be active. And like I said, this is dropped from Guardian Origo as well, so For the What's for Dinner and the Cooler class mod, you can farm the same guy, which is Guardian Origo, and he can be found in the Terminus range, up here in the Low Lays section, and the Vault entrance is there, and you'll need to fight your way through there to kill Guardian Origo for both of those pieces, so pretty easy to get 2 things from one boss. And finally, your enhancement. You want a Torg enhancement. I'm driving myself a wee bit nuts trying to get a purple one with good rolls. It's just not happening. Like, these are probably the hardest things to get, is your enhancements. So we've got a blue here because it's the first one that I saw that had the headringer on it. So 25% damage and 100% damage radius, which does affect the launchers, of course. So the rolls there, SMG damage and reload speed, absolutely useless as well. So we definitely need to get this upgraded, but I've just had absolutely no luck. And this is world loot, so you can just find it anywhere, just farm away, and hopefully you'll be more lucky than me. And we'll just touch on the specializations that you're going to want for this one as well. So for the specializations, you'll need 10 points into Survivor, and 20 points into Brute, and then 20 points into Gadgeteer here. So Survivor, max health and shields, Brute, gun damage, which does affect heavy ordnance, and Gadgeteer, ordnance cooldown rate, which again we're not too fussed about, but that's to get the perks. So we've got Tripwire, reduce ordnance cooldown whenever we activate an action skill, 25%, again not too fussed about that because of the uptime is going to be basically infinite. We've got full spectrum arsenal, ordnance damage now benefiting from gun damage at 50% effectiveness, so not a huge amount of gun damage in the build, but this is just helpful for any gun damage that we do have. It's just going to boost our ordnance up. And then the main one, fragmentation payload, ordnance gains a chance to critically hit and deals increased critical hit damage. So in total we've currently got 19% ordnance critical hit chance. You can get a lot higher because you can get rolls on your enhancement and your class mod, but we don't have any unfortunately, so 19%, but it can go a lot higher, and the more you've got, the more damage you're going to deal obviously. So, but this one, absolutely amazing. And the last skill, riddle you this, so increase gun damage when you deal an instance of gun damage. This one is stacked up really quickly when you're using either launcher, so a maximum of 50% at maximum of 50 stacks. And that's your specializations. So this one, really a lot of fun. Like I said, I do think I prefer the rapid fire Torg launcher just because of the way it spews rockets out like absolute crazy. But again, not the strongest build in the world, but just a huge amount of fun, good way to play the game. Definitely give it a go. Let me know what you think. If you've got any comments or suggestions, pop them down in the comments below. Love to hear from you. Love to hearing feedback about my builds and stuff like that. So hopefully you've enjoyed this one. If you have, drop a like, really appreciate it. Subscribe if you're new here for more Borderlands content coming soon. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.